Hi friends, welcome back to Sage Time. I'm really glad you're here. And let me just say that again, not just in this video, but whoever you are, wherever you are in this world, I want you to know I'm really glad you're here. It's important to me, and it's important to so many, not just people. There's such a bigger schematics of what's going on in this world and beyond. And no doubt, if you're on this channel, you're somebody who understands that at the very least, there is a lot of unseen. There is a lot even that is maybe witnessed and experienced by you, the rare individual who has developed or is developing those skills that we're always developing. And you know that while the Miss Jupiter, by the way, my kitty, she's got a lot to say today, so she might be talking quite a bit. What was I saying? While it can be easy to simplify the context of life and existence, and we do that sometimes because we need to, we also know that it is very complex, and honoring both the simplicity of it, love, creation, that's really what it's all about. Learning, growing, developing. Love, to me, that is the word that encompasses creation, creativity, creative expression, expansion, contraction, evolution, development, cycles, you know. Okay, so right, my point coming through vividly. And that's just the scrape on the tip of the iceberg. Oh, you can't see her right now, but her little ears are popping up. She really wants to be a part of this message. Perhaps an interfering part. There is a lot of interference going on. And there is a lot of protective support. It's interesting because the interference that's coming in, however one may define it, however one may define it, programs, thought forms, conditioned patterns, egregores, entities, however, there's all the many contexts. There's the paradigm of good versus evil, angels and demons, and then there's the more ones and zeros. We are getting a lot of per action from Jupiter. Thank you, sweet girl. However a person contextualizes it, it really is not so relevant to the main point of there is contrast and opposition, and there is also what we're trying to achieve and become. And at the root of every single individual, at the core of them, at the core of their spirit, their soul's consciousness, there is a prerogative for love. But to have the wholeness of love, one has to have the contrasts. Because if we just have we'll call it good and yummy and fun and amazing and all of that, well, then we're very lopsided. Remembering a commercial. I have no idea why this is coming up from the from the 80s. It was a V8 commercial. I don't even know if V8 juice is even around anymore. And the people would be walking around like at a tilt, the lopsided tilt. And a friend or a neighbor would walk up, or the mailman, and have you had your V8 today? And V8, especially in the 80s, people did not. This is what's coming through. People, for the most part, vegetables were a unwelcome requirement, and often an avoided one too. So there's the contrast, right? They were a little tilted, and they were happy and whistling and doing their thing, but they were lopsided. And so to become whole, we have to have the contrast. So back to the obstructive forces. We're experiencing them, but for a lot of people who have been in this rodeo for a while, it's like, oh goodness, she's just really doing her thing. And pushing buttons, and now there's like emojis all over the screen. Okay, well, we may or may not get through this. It's funny. I love that she's bringing this overt, luscious, loving, goofy energy because, there's, for me personally, I'm feeling from the collective, and of course, because it's strong and the collective feelings can be really predominant in my experience, there's a lot of grieving, and it's a heaviness of, not despondency. I'd like to hear from you maybe if you're feeling something along. It's this kind of quiet, okay, but I don't really know what I'm supposed to do with all this information or with what's being presented to me. And that was when I was prepping for this reading, that was the big message that was coming through, that my guides wanted me to bring forward with everybody here. This balancing act, and it really came with the Libra full moon that happened 2 days ago, I think it was, yesterday, I don't know. Really, this one full moon in the middle of Libra, in opposition to the sun, of course, right, in Aries, but this incredible, powerful, and very new stellium and power hitters in Aries. I heard an astrologer call it the basket. There's all these points, and then there's this one point in opposition, Libra, the moon, the pull and push, the ebb and flow, the fluidity. 1 second. Okay, hold on. Her tail knocked down the little Palo Santo. I didn't want it to burn anything. I asked Jupiter Kitty to be a part of this reading, and I had no idea she was going to be, well, she's going to be herself. So we have this experience of all these big hitters in Aries, and some that aren't particularly comfortable. Neptune just finally came out of its home world and background of Pisces. Really, we felt that for the last 12 to 13 years. And there's this new beginning, the first sign of the zodiac, Aries, and it's the I am, the self-identifier, houses Mars, the doer, the action, the creative impulse. And with the moon in opposition in Libra, the sign of balance, justice being the balance, there's this new level of requirement that says, we want you to learn how to work with the counter-opposing forces and influences on a far more subtle and intimately personal, nuanced way. So what is that? What does that mean? Try to thank you, everybody, for being patient if you're still here with all the little blunders and such that are going on. What does that mean? When we think about balance in the mundane world, we think about things like, okay, eat your vegetables a balanced diet, a balanced approach of living, exercise versus stagnation or rest, I should say. Hard work versus play. You see that, a couple of decades ago, and maybe it's even always still a thing, but the weekend warrior was the big torch of pride that I saw a lot of very Mars-like individuals. They work hard and they play hard, and those are some of the extremes. We see that in our economy, our global economy, extreme poverty and destitution, countered with extreme wealth and consumerism. And it's not that we're not talking about that. What we are talking about, though, is the day-to-day stuff, the little things. I'm going to get rid of this because it's the emojis on my screen are making me have my squirrel moments. The moments of feeling that Aries and Mars will be entering Aries soon in the next, week or two, that Aries influence, the impulse to go and push and do and be and succeed and accomplish and produce and all the things that our social constructs have become in such a pronounced and insidious way that we don't even know that it's not, that there's any other way, and that it's not healthy. We don't often even know until maybe you go through some extreme experiences that what a detriment that type of lifestyle causes on many levels, externally, globally, personally, and at a soul level, and everything in between. So how do we do that? How do we strike balance in that very intimately personal, nuanced way? Well, of course, it has to do with the pace that we keep, being able to slow down enough, either as a constant, staying in a slower ebb and flow, or taking enough points of time throughout our day to come back to ourselves with breath work. But really the intent is living as ceremony, meaning living in that meditative, almost trance-like state, that present with the movement of breath and the internal universe while engaging with the external universe. And that is a skill that is truly masterful and takes a great deal of time, especially to have it at a level of heightened sensitivity with the different layers of the world around us, not strictly speaking only the mundane material world, the evident world. Being able to pick up and perceive in your own unique way. And here's the thing, you each have such a unique way, a formula of different ingredients on how you perceive the world around you. Maybe you are somebody who has a really powerful third eye opening, and so you see colors and auras, and you perceive sounds around you as an orchestration. Maybe you see other realms pop through in the natural world, or in the trees and or everything, from the buildings to the clouds to the plants. seeing Jesus in some grilled cheese sandwich, that kind of thing. But yes, and so much more. Far more than a confirmation biased sort of way. And I know you know what I'm talking about. It's a way that you'll often question because, of course, you want to be pragmatic and accurate. And so it's always wise to take time and question, is this real? Is this not real? You know, am I making this up? And then starting to see the evidence come in supporting that in a very real way, in a very powerful way, and repetitive. And that's what I'm talking about in maintaining that personalized, intimate, nuanced counterbalance. Being so present as to be able to keep an enhancement at the forefront of your extrasensory abilities, so that each step, each move and non-move that you make is informed by the world around you and your internal sensory perception and communication. It's a dialogue with the greater spirit of all. And that comes through in different specific ways, depending on who you are, what you've been through, what you've cultivated and created. And the counter forces that come in are not only meant to challenge us in ways that will improve our strength, but also ways that will improve our clarity and thereby our confidence and conviction therein. And not confidence like, I know, so I know, and you don't know what I know. No, confidence in the sense of, I know because through empirical evidence and time and presence and practice, I have developed this knowing. And also I know because I know who I am. I'm speaking in context of what I know a lot of you say. I know who I am, and that is somebody who is comfortable with being wrong and open to that, being proved wrong, that I'm incorrect, inaccurate, or accurate. And just because something in the external world, and this is the more advanced level, the new levels, new devils, so to speak, just because the external world is bringing in signs that before would have said to me, this is a no, I need to not do this, I need to pause. I'm sensing now that there's something more to it. And I'm going to take a little step, not a push. I'm not going to force my way through anything, but I'm going to take small steps energetically, physically, actionably, perceptively to move towards what I can feel my spiritual self calling me towards and igniting and elating for it. But I'm also not going to like plow through a forest of blackberry bushes and barber and bushes. I'm going to weave and duck and move, and if needed cut, but cut wisely and cut gently, not with aggression, because what we exhibit and exert and demonstrate is of course what's going to come back to us at some point and in some way. So with reverence, moving through those obstacles. No thank you, blackberry bushes, or snip snip, but instead of hacking and whacking our way through with a machete, we're being more conscious to the consciousness of the obstacles that are presenting themselves to us. And so that's a big part of what this last Libra full moon has brought to the surface of, I'm hearing Spirit, what we'd like you to work with now in this more masterful sense. And it doesn't matter how much time or quantitative mastery or qualitative mastery you might have in comparison to another person. It really is not as important as it is It's not important at all. What's important is where you're at right now and your ability to bring your conscious awareness and reflection into that, of how far you've come so far for you, not for him or her or them, or some sort of ridiculous iconic stereotype of something that really never even exists. These gurus and mentors and so forth, they are never, ever, 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 ever what they present themselves to be. So, I mean, it's that whole false idols are all the idols. And yet, you can go within and face with a sense of humility and humble awareness the fallibility of yourself alongside the incredible development that you have procured within yourself so far, in the face of contrast, in the face of opposition, in the face of hardships and worse, more painful words. And this is what you've done. This is an extraordinary and exceptional, I'm hearing the spirits just coming in, this is an exceptional sense of appreciation and self-value and ongoing, constant inner experience of care and support for yourself, from yourself, and that internal opening of now being able to feel more and more the support that you have around you that is unseen. It's like sitting quietly in your own space and in your own energy and accumulating and cultivating a sense of incredible love and reverence for yourself. And while feeling that and touching that, imagining life on this planet, everything that exists on this planet, life and non-life, naturally created and human created, and allowing yourself to consider that and intend towards addressing that, even feeling it, and then simply saying, I love you. And feeling that love that you have within yourself, for yourself, being proffered to it all. And when we do that, feeling that back in return and being able to feel that back in return, that is a huge part of awakening your internal receptivity, that yin, that divine feminine, that ability to receive. Because if you've been giving and giving and giving your whole life, and I know you have, whether through consensual or others taking, the sirens. More obstruction and letting it become music. Burp, burp. Letting that obstruction become the bass and the high-pitched saxophone of the orchestra, and allowing it to come together with all the other beautiful things that now you're able to perceive and open up to and receive. And I'm feeling that coming in really strongly. And this is the conversation, the communication, the dialogue that you are now being presented with to have with the universe, to have with the great spirit of all that there is around you in all the layers, levels, and dimensions, time and space not being an issue. We're over that, even though we know we have to work with it. And allowing your internal subtle devices to move the physical devices within you, to move the neurochemistry, to move the muscle cells, to move the mitochondria and ATP that energizes, to move the vitality, to move all of you that goes from the unseen world, the space in between electrons and the nucleus of each and every atom in your body, allowing that space and what's going on, the reverberations in that space, to inform you in a way that is as within, so without, as is perceived and experienced around you. And not only moving your body and your thoughts and emotions with that, but counterbalancing. Because just like any orchestra, the conductor is in charge of bringing all the pieces, the individuals and the instruments that they're playing of the orchestra together, that keeps in mind who they are. You can't ask a flute player to sound like a clarinet, nor can you ask a clarinet to sound like a bass drum. You need to and play like them either. So a conductor knows that they need to work with all pieces that exist. And yet the conductor also knows that it has a goal and agenda in mind. And the more true to the core of artistic expression, and in this case, personally, of our lives, that artistic expression being love and balance, the more true that conductor is to that agenda, that intention, the more he or she is able to bring all the pieces of their team together. So when we feel that intensity of all the sirens and the dog barking and the neighbor, whatever, in maybe not even so much in the rote sense, but also in the internal, for the sensitives, feeling the thoughts of angst and rigidity and go, 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 meeting slow it down. Actually, let's take a pause and see and allow what needs to land, and then move forward with that. And that's another big piece that Spirit wanted me to bring in and talk about, is that idea of allowing what needs to be provided. And often that requires time and a true sense of patience, peace within that patience. And it doesn't necessarily mean filling that space up with other things and doing, going. It can often mean holding that space of what it is that we want to create. If we want to create something that perpetuates and ripples out into the world, peace and balance and compassion, justice, balance again, understanding, as a form of forgiveness, so that people can, through that space held of understanding and compassion and forgiveness, people can breathe and slow down enough to actually see what it is that they're doing that's hurting others and the world as a whole. And so that's the big work. It's not so much how much content one is creating, how many hours one is powering through in their corporate job, whatever it is, how many houses, or how great your garden looks. It's not that. Those exist and they're a very real thing and they have their benefits. But those things and doings are not the ones that have the bigger impact on pulling the inertia, the overt and imbalanced, impetuous, back into balance. And pulling it back into balance doesn't come from a place of counter anger or counter force. that simply creates pressure. And from that pressure, there's resistance. And just like two fault lines coming together, pushing up against each other, you do that long enough and hard enough, then, you've got some huge eruptions and devastation and catastrophe. We're talking about feeling where that inertia is going too far and saying, okay, I'm going to move out of the way of that, very matrix-like, right? But I'm also going to be a part of grabbing it. And now we're moving into kind of very much the concept of Tai Chi, grabbing that energy as it goes by me, because I don't need it to hit me, and holding it, allowing it to exist as it needs to exist, but also working with it with another option, the slower, more loving, more patient, more considerate and present. And then eventually what came forward as that disconnected, impetuous, go, 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 consume and take and make and da-da-da, or even in like the case of war and destroy and power over, we can grab that and pull it forward and bring it in front of us and work with it, allow it to fight, allow it to resist, but also help it in a softer containment until it can come to a place of centralization and neutralization. And then working with that. Who are you and how do you need to be in a way that works with and understands and allows who I am and how I need to be. And that kind of conversation can't happen until each one of us get very real and say, who am I really and what do I really need to be? What do I really need to experience? Not what we were conditioned and programmed and told and are being, manipulated by constructs and systems that are not who we are. And for some people it is seemingly who they are, because they don't have the sensitivities to perceive the parts inside of them that are just screaming in pain and anger and sorrow and rage, because their soul that is fighting back, that inner child, is saying, this is not who I am. Stop forcing me to do this and stop quieting me, stop silencing me. So I know that's a lot of information, and I hope that came through really clearly. It is a beautiful message, and it's a conversation that we could keep going and going. But I think for now, this is a really good place to pause the video and... Oh, I'm being told to pull one card. So I flipped the deck of the Sacred Earth Oracle, and the card I got was Center. This is a new camera, so I'm trying to figure out how to work with it. And how perfect is that? So we are going to close off the reading with reading this card. And I opened the book right to it. Thank you, Spirit. And this is the conversation. Well said, well put, and I stumbled through it, and Jupiter Kitty made a mess of things, and she, spoke her truth in this video, meowing and her little howls and her little obstructions, but it was important that she had a voice, knocking the camera over, knocking the Palo Santo over, and she was doing it with joy and her lusciousness of being true to who she was at the moment, and being able to work with her and the chaos that she was creating, and doing it from a place of patience and love and presence and even some humor, where if I was really anxious to have everything be perfect and be so presentable and not see the little aspects of me in the corner that are not finished and completed and don't present something iconic. If I was trying to hold on to that, then I would have had a reactivity to her, and then everything wouldn't have come in the way that it was meant to. And this is that confirmation from Spirit. Oops, okay. Really trying to get used to this new camera. All right, so here we go. Center, the earthly meaning. Do not confuse selfishness with self-centering. Bring your well-being, your values, your future, and your loves to the center of your world within you. Break the hold of objects, habits, or relationships that insist you revolve around their needs and demands. I'm gonna cry. I mean, the universe can be so beautiful. Being centered makes you stronger and more balanced, and disturbances are less likely to knock you off course. Extend your positive sphere of influence. Let me take a little sip here. The spiritual meaning. Let go of fixed expectations and time frames. Try to be patient, flexible, adaptable, and open-minded. You are well on the way to arriving at your heart's desire. You are well on the way to arriving at your heart's desire. An invisible force gently pushes and pulls you towards your true center. Let go and let it flow. Wow, you guys. It has been a long journey, but the destination is so much closer than you think. The influence of this timeless, invisible force has been observed and studied by the greatest of minds since Aristotle sought to explain gravitas in the 4th century BCE. Gravity draws planets to suns, moons to planets, and the life-giving atmosphere to our Earth. Within our complex galaxy, there are many centers of gravity. The same is true for all complex beings, you included. We come into this world with love at our center, but disturbances can knock us from our orbit. When this happens, our immediate center of gravity shifts, and we can settle into orbit around all manner of people, values, and expectations. But love is the brightly burning sun at the true center of your world, and its invisible pull brings you ever closer to the glorious light. I cannot even tell you how extraordinary this is. I've been in conversation the last few days, yesterday especially, about gravity. And physics has been shifting the definition of what gravity is. And now they're really understanding that they just don't know what gravity is. What they thought it was and what makes it, it's not what it is. And my guides have been coming in for a long time telling me gravity is caused by love. And yesterday that came through repeatedly over and over, and they were saying it in many different ways. And I may probably not be able to touch on all of it right now, but I'd like to offer you that statement to spend time with and meditate with and feel within yourself that gravity is caused by love. And you can look at it scientifically from negative forces like electrons, the yin, the feminine, being a magnet for positive, the masculine, the inertia, right? I mean, everything from yin and yang to love and absence of love has an attractive pull and impetuous, a drive. And so part of what can come in when we have a gravitational pull, love being the foundation, the core coding of the feminine, of the negative pull, love being that call. When we have that, we can bring in all sorts of the polarity of that. And by watching what comes in through that cultivation and curation of the quantity and quality of love that we're creating, we can start seeing where we can amend that and improve it and enhance it, heal parts of it by what we're calling in. So if we're bringing in things that don't reflect the counter force that we would want to have, that balanced union of positive and negative forces coming together, creating that gravitational, that adhesive, cohesive formation of reality, then we can start working on that. And that's another aspect of the mechanism of as within, so without. So yeah, wow, that was really beautiful. Thank you, Spirit. Thank you, friends. Thank you, everyone who's here and has stayed for the reading. I would love to hear your thoughts and feelings, as always, in the comments down below. And may you have a blessed rest of your day and journey onward. Ahom.